Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. He's here. Those two words, whispered by a 6-year-old pressing his nose against the rain-streaked window, hit Julian harder than a physical blow, freezing the blood in his veins and stopping his heart mid-beat. It wasn't the storm outside that made the walls of the cramped, peeling apartment shake. It was the arrival of the sleek, obsidian Maybach idling at the curb like a prowling beast waiting to devour its prey. Julian dropped the stack of overdue legal notices, his breath hitching as he looked at the cracked screen of his old phone. The one his adopted twins, Leo and Alara, had stolen from his drawer just 20 minutes ago. He read the message history, his hands trembling. Asterisk to the Ice King asterisk. Asterisk message. Julian cries at night. Bad men want to take us. We need a dad. Come now. Asterisk asterisk reply asterisk. I'm already outside. Julian's lungs seized. He hadn't spoken to Cashin Blackwood in 4 years. Not since the night the world burned down between them, leaving nothing but ash and silence. Cashin was the apex, the corporate titan of Seoul's underworld, a man whose heart was rumored to be made of frozen iron. And Julian? Julian was just the broken artist who had dared to walk away. A heavy, authoritative knock thundered against the flimsy wood of the door. It wasn't a request. It was a command. Julian scrambled to the twins, pulling them behind his legs. Go to your room. Now. But Leo started, his eyes wide. Now. Julian snapped, fear sharpening his voice into a blade. As the children scurried away, the lock clicked. The door didn't just open. It seemed to yield, surrendering to the presence of the man standing on the threshold. Cashin Blackwood filled the doorway, blocking out the dim hallway light. He was exactly as Julian remembered, yet somehow more terrifying. He wore a charcoal 3-piece suit that cost more than this entire building, tailored to accentuate the broad, powerful shoulders and the lean, predatory grace of his stance. His hair, dark as midnight, was swept back, revealing a face carved from marble, sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw, and eyes the color of storm clouds that instantly locked onto Julian. The air in the room grew heavy, charged with the static of unresolved history and raw, unchecked pheromones. This was the presence of a true alpha, a biological force of nature that made Julian's knees weak despite his beta-like resilience. You look terrible, Julian, Cashin said. His voice was a low baritone, a velvet caress wrapped around a core of steel. It wasn't an insult. It was a statement of fact, delivered with clinical detachment. Julian backed up until his hips hit the cheap laminate counter of the kitchenette. Get out, Cashin. You have no right. I have every right when my phone lights up with a distress signal from children I didn't know existed. Cashin interrupted, stepping into the room. He closed the door behind him, the click of the latch sounding like the ceiling of a tomb. He surveyed the apartment with a sneer of distaste. The peeling wallpaper, the water stain on the ceiling, the sheer poverty of it all. Is this how you've been living? Since you left me? I'm managing, Julian spat, crossing his arms to hide the trembling of his hands. They're my sister's kids. She died 6 months ago. I'm their guardian. Barely, Cashin countered, taking a step closer. The scent of him, sandalwood, ozone and cold rain, invaded Julian's senses, triggering a deep, dormant ache in his chest. I did a background check on my way here. You're drowning in debt. Your landlord is evicting you in 3 days. And your sister's husband, the abusive gambler, is petitioning for custody. He's going to win, Julian. Unless you have a miracle. Julian felt the tears stinging his eyes, hot and humiliating. I don't need a miracle. I need you to leave. You need a partner, Cashin corrected, closing the distance. He stopped inches from Julian, towering over him. The heat radiating from his body was intoxicating. You need money. You need power. You need someone who can crush a custody petition with a single phone call. Julian looked up, trapped in the shadow of the man he had spent 4 years trying to forget. And let me guess, that someone is you. Who else? Cashin tilted his head, his gaze dropping to Julian's lips for a fraction of a second before snapping back to his eyes. I can fix this. I can destroy the uncle. I can give these children a life of luxury. I can clear your debt. At what cost? Julian whispered. He knew Cashin. Cashin Blackwood never gave anything for free. He was a transactional creature, a man who viewed relationships as mergers and acquisitions. Cashin's hand raised, his thumb brushing against Julian's cheekbone. The touch was electric, sending a jolt straight to Julian's core. You know the price, Julian. You come back. To the penthouse. To my bed. You wear my ring. We present a united front. A stable, wealthy family unit that no judge would dare dissolve. A marriage of convenience? Julian scoffed, though his resolve was crumbling. You want to buy me. I want what is mine, Cashin growled, his composure cracking just enough to reveal the possessive fire burning beneath the ice. You walked away. You ran. I looked for you for a year before I forced myself to stop. Now fate has dragged you back to my doorstep. I am not letting you go a second time. Before Julian could answer, the bedroom door creaked open. Little Alara peeked out, holding a stuffed rabbit by the ear. She looked at the giant man in the expensive suit, then at Julian. Is he the monster? She asked innocently. Julian flinched. The monster. That's what he had called Cashin when he cried to his sister years ago. Cashin didn't look offended. He crouched down, balancing on the balls of his feet, ignoring the dust on the floor that would ruin his trousers. He looked at the child with a strange intensity. I am, Cashin said softly, but I only eat the bad men. For the good ones, I bring gifts. He reached into his breast pocket and pulled out a sleek, black card. He placed it on the floor and slid it toward her. It wasn't a credit card. It was a key card to the most exclusive hotel in the city, owned by his conglomerate. He stood up and turned back to Julian, the hardness returning to his eyes. Pack your bags, Julian. The movers will be here in an hour. Unless you prefer to explain to them why they have to live with a man who hits them. It was a low blow, a cruel, manipulative checkmate, and Cashin knew it. Julian looked at the twins, then at the man who had shattered his heart 4 years ago. He realized with a sinking feeling that the hate he thought he felt was just a thin veneer over a love that had never truly died. Fine, Julian breathed, defeated. But this is a contract, Cashin. Nothing more. I won't love you again. Cashin's lips curled into a dangerously arrogant smirk. We'll see about that. The transition back into Cashin's world was like stepping into a gilded cage. The penthouse hadn't changed, yet it felt different. Cold. Sterile. It was a museum of a life unlived, waiting for Julian to breathe color back into it. For the first 2 weeks, they lived in a strange, tense détente. The twins, surprisingly, took to the luxury like ducks to water. Cashin, the supposed cold alpha, was bafflingly patient with them. He hired top-tier tutors, bought them mountains of toys, and even, Julian watched in disbelief from the doorway, let Leo paint his fingernails blue one evening because the boy wanted to practice being an artist like Uncle Julian. But with Julian, Cashin was a wall of ice. He was polite, distant, and professional. They slept in the same bed, for appearances, Cashin claimed, in case the custody investigator stopped by, but he never touched Julian. He slept on the far edge, his back a rigid line of tension. It was driving Julian insane. The breaking point came 3 weeks in. The custody hearing was days away, and the corrupt uncle, desperate for the trust fund money attached to the twins, made a move. Julian was picking the kids up from their new private school when a beat-up van screeched onto the sidewalk. 2 men jumped out, grabbing Leo and Alara. No! Julian screamed, launching himself at the nearest attacker. He was an architect, not a fighter, but parental instinct was a powerful drug. He clawed at the man's face, buying seconds. The attacker backhanded him. Julian hit the pavement hard, the taste of copper filling his mouth. Through his blurring vision, he saw them dragging the screaming children toward the van. Screech! A black Maybach drifted around the corner, tires smoking, and slammed directly into the side of the van with a deafening crunch of metal. Silence fell for a heartbeat. Then, the driver's door opened. Cashin emerged. He wasn't wearing his suit jacket. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing forearms corded with muscle. He didn't look like a CEO. He looked like a god of war. He didn't say a word. He walked toward the men with a terrifying, silent velocity. The first kidnapper pulled a knife. Cashin didn't break stride. He caught the man's wrist, twisted it with a sickening snap, and drove his knee into the man's gut. The attacker crumpled. The second man, holding Leo, froze. "Stay back. I'll hurt the kid." Cashin stopped. His chest heaved. His eyes, usually gray, were almost black, the pupils blown wide with adrenaline and rage. "If you scratch him," Cashin said, his voice dropping to a subsonic growl that vibrated in Julian's bones, "I will ensure you pray for death long before I grant it to you." The man hesitated, terrified by the sheer aura of dominance rolling off Cashin. It was the power Julian had feared, the ruthlessness. But right now, directed at the threat, it was the most beautiful thing Julian had ever seen. Police sirens wailed in the distance. The man dropped Leo and ran. Cashin didn't chase him. He rushed to the children, checking them for injuries with frantic, shaking hands. Once he was sure they were safe, he turned to Julian. Julian was still on the ground, wiping blood from his lip. Cashin was there in an instant, dropping to his knees. The cold alpha was gone. In his place was a man terrified of losing his world. "Julian," Cashin choked out, cupping Julian's face. "Look at me. Are you hurt? Did they hurt you?" "I'm fine," Julian whispered, wincing as Cashin's thumb grazed the bruise forming on his jaw. You crashed your car. I would burn this entire city to ash if they touched a hair on your head," Cashin said, his voice raw. And then he kissed him. It wasn't a soft kiss. It was desperate, bloody, and consuming. It tasted of iron and rain and 4 years of starvation. Julian froze for a moment, then melted, his hands tangling in Cashin's hair, pulling him closer. The barrier between them shattered. The contract incinerated in the heat of their bodies. When they pulled apart, gasping, Cashin rested his forehead against Julian's. "Why?" Julian asked, his voice trembling. "Why did you help? Why did you reply to the text?" "Because," Cashin murmured, closing his eyes, "you thought I didn't change my number because I was lazy. Julian, I kept that line active for 4 years. Just in case you ever needed me. I checked it every single night." Julian's heart broke and healed all at once. The cold alpha hadn't been cold. He had been waiting. "You're a fool," Julian cried softly. "I'm your fool," Cashin corrected. "And now that I have you back, I am never letting you go. The contract is void. I want the real thing." Julian looked at the man who had just risked his life and his empire for 2 kids that weren't his, and an ex-lover who had broken his heart. "You have it," Julian whispered. "You have me." The custody battle that followed was a massacre. Cashin's lawyers descended like sharks, exposing the uncle's gambling debts and criminal history. The judge granted Julian full, permanent custody within 20 minutes. That night, the penthouse wasn't cold. It was filled with the sound of cartoons from the living room and the scent of a home-cooked meal. Later, in the master bedroom, the atmosphere was thick with a different kind of heat. Cashin stood by the window, looking out at the city lights. Julian walked up behind him, wrapping his arms around Cashin's waist, pressing his face into the broad back. "The twins asked if they can call you Dad," Julian mumbled into the fabric of Cashin's shirt. Cashin stiffened, then turned around in Julian's arms. The look on his face was one of pure, unguarded vulnerability. "And what did you say?" "I told them," Julian smiled, tracing the line of Cashin's jaw, "that they'd have to ask the alpha of the house." Cashin caught Julian's hand and kissed the palm. He lifted Julian up, carrying him toward the bed like he weighed nothing. "Then I suppose," Cashin growled playfully, looming over him, "I better work hard to be worthy of the title, and that is how the viper tamed the wolf." If you enjoyed seeing the cold alpha lose his composure for love, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments. Would you forgive a lover who waited 4 years in silence? Or is that just obsession? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then,